I want to go through some of your team changes and take me back through some of those times when you switched teams. We know the Suzuki one is going to come up here, and you've told us before that was not a great switch, but let's get into it a little bit. So you're an up-and-coming Yamaha amateur support guy. You're winning 125 Supercrosses. You're getting top fives in nationals, and I don't know. I guess Suzuki picks you out of nowhere, or I don't know if Yamaha dropped you or Yamaha couldn't offer you what Suzuki did. But why the switch to Suzuki from Yamaha? Who I would think, like, if I'm Yamaha, I'm like, oh, I really should keep Mike Larocco. Like, you literally were a kind of an up-and-coming kid.
Yeah, that one was a little bit hard because I mean, at the time, my parents had a Honda Yamaha dealership, and I had been Yamaha guy that whole time so far, but it was really just about Yamaha offered me support, a continued support ride, and Suzuki basically offered me a box fan. And
okay.
If you can imagine back then, the box fan was, it was where you wanted to be. And so I could have continued on with Yamaha with pulling a trailer behind my parents' motorhome, or I'd had a box fan, and that was kind of like, as a kid.
Yeah.
I felt like I needed a box fan.
Of course, box fans were sweet. But was it also a factory bike? It was a full factory gig with Suzuki, and it was a support ride with Yamaha. Okay. And more money with Suzuki or whatever.
It probably worked out fairly similar because when you factor in, paid expense versus, it probably wasn't enough. I mean, if I'm looking back as more of a businessman now, probably not that big a deal.
So no qualms for you for going to Suzuki, who at that time, I mean, they had a decent bike, but their program had been on the skids a little bit. And that 1990 team, by the way, there was 12 of you guys. I don't know. There was like so many.
Their program was a mess, but their 125 was actually good.
Yeah.
When I went over there first round.
And I guess if you're McCarty, you're like, hey, we got Damon Bradshaw.
Yeah.
We're set. I don't know.
Yeah. And I think who else was there? Diamond and,
yeah, that would have been last year of Diamond's career. It was 90. Yep.
Yeah. And then maybe Glover, did he finish in 89 or 90?
No, he was done in 88. He was done at the end of 88. Yeah. So if I go by the Racer X vault, and again, maybe you don't remember this, but it looks like you won your first ever Supercross. Did you race and not qualify? Or is this vault correct? Like 88 Pontiac, you won. And it looks like it was your first Supercross. I don't know.
That doesn't sound right because I remember. Well, heck, it could have been. So did I must have done West Coast in '89. So, heck, I don't know. I mean, I didn't. I started. I will tell you this. I did start at Nationals and not in Supercross.
Yes. Yep. So, we have some Nationals results. You started at Millville in '87, I guess, after Loretta's, right?
Yeah. And so that would have made sense then if I went into Supercross. But are you sure Pontiac was the first round?
That's what it says here. But sometimes the vault can be wrong. But that's what it says.
I know I won a race or two that season, but I know DeHoop won the championship. I don't know what. It just seems like I would have messed up somewhere because I probably should have won that. DeHoop got a little mad at me because I suggested that you should have won this title because there was one ninth for you, and maybe there was a DNQ one race. Yeah, maybe. And DeHoop won it. Congrats. He rode awesome, but I made a suggestion that you should have won and he got mad at me. But anyways, he'll be all right. 2020. All right. So basically, it was a factory ride versus a support ride is why you switched. Basically, yeah. In my memory, in my memory, I felt like it gave me an avenue forward quicker. Right. And bike was good. Team was a mess. It was Heben, I think, as manager, trying to corral all you guys. But it was a mess. Yeah. Also, I think they were moving locations and just not what you would imagine a factory team to be like. I mean, compared to Yamaha, I saw theirs, and that was pretty tight. And and put together. So definitely, my reference was a mess.
Yeah, for sure, right? So that year, you ride 250 Supercross, 250 motocross. Was it always a plan for you to drop into 125 motocross after the 250s? Because obviously no 500. Was that? Did you agree to that, and you knew that going in?
I don't recall whether I knew it or not, but and I'm going to assume that I had to because they didn't have a 500, and but also I was still 125. Well, I think we had eligibility back then, right?
Yeah.
So I kind of looked I liked it, so I don't remember.
Yeah.
All I know is that it started because I had a factory opportunity.
So we did a couple of those re-raceable podcasts that I was telling you about with Mike Kardowski on his two seasons, 89 where he won the outdoors and then 90 where he lost to Cooper. And if you read Cycle News and if you talk to Mike and some different industry people around that time, it was pretty much understood that yourself, Larry Ward, basically like, hey, help out Buell, maybe Buell dropped down too. Help out Guy when you can, and it looks like you guys did. Was that a spoken thing or an unspoken thing to help him win that title?
Well, it was about the only thing that was spoken was if you're ahead of him and he's in the next, he's within a guy or two, then, we need to get those points. So it wasn't like our mission was that.
Yep.
But if he was in sight and don't take the points away from him was what I remember.
And then there's a quote from you in one of the Cycle News is that you were saying, I don't want to get involved in this title thing. And it said, maybe it was the last round at Unadilla where they were like, Larocco was the fastest guy, but, kind of appeared to slow, I think the quotes were. The description was appeared to slow, and then there was a quote from you saying, I just don't want to get involved in this title fight.
I mean, I didn't, but we were.
Well, you won Millville, though, so that had to make you feel good for your first national win where you were like, I dropped down in this class, and look at me, I can ride a 125,
Yeah.
So,
yep.
Your results were pretty good. After that year when you dropped down, you went 1, 2, 3, 3 at the last 4. So yeah, people were probably like, yeah, this guy's really good. So, all right, Suzuki to Cowie for 92. Cowie was your longtime home after that. I'm guessing you were like, I'll go to like a better team / bike. That's like Suzuki probably tried to keep you and you were like, no.
A little different than that.
Okay.
Cowie gave me an offer to ride the 125 as their premier guy. Mm-hmm. And having done those, year-end 125 races, I kind of liked it. So I think the main motivation for me at that time was to get a title, and I thought I was ready to. So I think in 92 I went there. Obviously, we started off 250 Supercross, mm-hmm. But I kind of felt like the premier guy for the first time, even though it was on 125 at the time, and it just felt right at the time. The Suzuki I wasn't, too pumped on the team, and it just seemed like the right thing to do. It was I think it was a very easy decision going that way.
You won your first Supercross for them at the opener, so that was there. Cowie was just loving that, I'm guessing. Yeah,
and I actually I just remember gelling really well over there on those bikes. Yeah,
they were pretty good back then. They were really coming into their own, right? So you stay at Cowie for a long time. You win a couple championships. You lose one. Heartbreakingly, crashing shifter, carburetor coming off.
Yeah,
that was still to this day. When you read back the Cycle News stuff, you're just like, it just wasn't one thing. You had to feel like you were just so cursed or something. What was going on?
Definitely.
Right? Like
definitely.
Did you get along with Turner, Roy Turner, the manager? Was it all that?
Yeah,
it was good. Yeah. And then. Obviously, you brought your dad along. How much of a fight was that? So Suzuki probably was fine, but one of the things that you insisted on, and you kind of told me at one point in one of our interviews that you regretted it a little bit, was staying with your dad too long, which we'll talk about. But how hard was that to get your dad as your mechanic? Was it fine?
Well, see, those things were relative to my switching from Cowie. And then, of course, I think I had karma as a Geico manager because I had a whole different perspective. Because really what happened was the reason I switched from Cowie to Suzuki the second time was because of them because they kind of pushed my dad out.
Oh,
and
okay.
I just, and when where our family was, connected that whole time, my whole career. And then I just remember how emotionally hard it was to have them feel like they're taking their life away from them, really, is what it felt like.
Sure, yeah.
And then so I kind of did it. I didn't want to leave Cowie. I did it because of Roger was, wooing me in, telling me my dad could come and all that stuff. But I look back on that as, a really bad move.
Yeah, especially coming from a manager's point of view years later, right?
Yeah, because what I learned was the same thing that I was trying to tell these dads that I was working with at Geico. It's this. They don't know what they don't know.
Yeah.
And, we got years of experience. Your boy, and, we know your boy times 50. And they forget that we have the best interest in mind as well. And anyway, so I was that guy. I was the guy when I was at Cowie young. I was kind of letting my parents do everything. I didn't talk to anybody. I was just doing my thing, and I just made a bad call. Just mainly because I wasn't mature enough to really be involved in, my world outside of whatever that was there.
Defending you though, also, like you should have won the championship in '92. Just bike problems and weird stuff. And then in '95, you blew your knee out, but you were the fastest guy probably. You won in '94. Like what you and your dad were doing was working, So in defense of that, I could see where you're like, well, we're good, like we're fast,
Yeah, and it's just such a different perspective now. I was, I think we were selfishly our own team within that team, and no team wants that.
No, you're right.
No. So I was, naive and younger, cockier, you just didn't see that stuff, man. And, of course, like I said, when I got to Geico and I had to relive it from the other side of the fence, I was like, oh, I get it.
Yeah. I do know people that worked with your dad, on these various teams, and they said he was not easy to work with always. You know what I mean?
Right.
Like, I don't think nobody's, calling him an asshole or anything. They're just like, Big Mike, was his own thing and doing his own thing, So it's absolutely. You could see where Turner or somebody would be like, wait, just a minute. Was he a yeller at you? Like, was he that? Like, you're pretty self motivated. But was he a yeller or no?
Yeah, for sure, a yeller. But I was negatively, negative motivation worked for me.
Yep.
So
you and Ricky are about the only ones, I think. RC, it worked for RC too,
Yeah. And you don't want to hear it, so you do better.
Somebody told me because Robbie Renard's dad was there too, and your dad, and someone was telling me back in the day, it was like just Dad Central running their own programs, and like Robbie Senior was porting the bikes and stuff, and they're just like, no, you can't. They're like, you can't do that. Right. You can't port the bikes. So I can imagine what it was like. Like imagine if you showed up at FC days and Will Hahn's dad said, I put a different cam in.
Yeah.
So
I get it.
Yeah. Thanks for listening to the Fly Racing Racer X podcast with Mike Larocco. Appreciate it. Thank you to the folks at motorsport.com. Go through the banner on pulpmx.com to order Motorsport. That helps us out. Great customer service, dedicated team of gearheads there willing to help you out. Great return policy, free shipping on everything over $79. Motorsport.com, OEM and aftermarket parts. Like I said, go there. There's a whole Pulp Nation section as well. Thank you to the folks at motorsport.com for the support. And Koba Links, lowering suspension link from everything from Aprilia to Yamaha. And, they'll give you some more confidence on the bike, have some better suspension action. And, if you're shorter of stature, your wife or girlfriend rides, check out KobaLinks.com, KOUBA links.com. Code PulpMX for free shipping and a discount. Everything made up there in Boise, Idaho. So thank you to Koba Links, motorsport.com. Renthal and Maxxis as well, and of course the Fly Racing guys, of course. So let's talk more Mike Larocco, shall we? So you go to Suzuki, and we all know that this was horrible. Well, I guess the first year went okay, right? The first year was you won some races. Bike wasn't anywhere near as good as the Cowie, but your dad was with you. So again, you won some races, but you weren't on your same form, and I'm guessing Roger was trying. Roger was brand new there too at this point. In '95 he was, and then just more of the same for Suzuki, like just bike and team stuff.
Yeah, that one was that one was a bit different because I came in. I mean, I had a pretty bad knee injury, so I wasn't, because at the end of it was at Millville,
first turn
in '95. I mean, but I tore ACL, MCL, meniscus, PCL.
Oh.
I had like one thing hanging my leg on.
Really? Was that bad? I just thought you did ACL. Oh.
Mm-mm.
Oh, wow.
And so I went to a couple doctors, basically said I wasn't going to be able to ride again. And, that it was going to be a 6 month to a year recovery. And then I ended up going to, I think it was Randy from Bell Helmets at the time was he got me connected with the U.S. ski team, and the Dr. Rodenberg put me back together, and I was starting to ride at 4 months. It took me 4 months, which is the longest I've ever been out. But so when I first switched, that was right after that. So I was getting arm pump. I was uncomfortable, but I was kind of blaming myself, right, for my knee. I was wearing knee braces. I didn't used to wear knee braces. Just a lot of things were different. So for the first part of the year, I was optimistic that it was me, and then all of a sudden everything just kept happening. Every time I ride the bike, the swing arm bolts would break and foot pegs were breaking off, and it was scary. My valves you'd jump up onto a on-off tabletop, and the power valve would stick open. And eventually, I mean, all those close calls, you're just like, you get scared.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so I was, trying to work through that. And at the same time, I was coming off of being the guy and no longer the guy.
Yeah.
And so it was hard. That kind of crushed me mentally. One, I blamed the bike for leading me into the doubt. And then, all that stuff around that went after it, because at the time did he not just move to Suzuki?
95 was his first year.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so he had all that on his shoulders. So he didn't want to, I'm not typically a whiner, but I was,
no.
I was just kind of like, look, I feel like I'm better than this, and I can't, I'm scared, whatever. It's just new to me. I wasn't used to that. So I got kind of, I look back and all the stuff that I did during that time, and I'm embarrassed. But at the same time, I was like, it's not my fault.
Yeah.
It's not my fault.
Yeah.
But anyway, so that one was, it wasn't as if they weren't trying, but I mean, it really crushed me, my confidence. I mean, that took me back years.
Yeah. So I want to back. So did Suzuki sign you with your knee destroyed, or was that deal done before? Do you remember
before?
Okay.
Before. Well, it was kind of I think it was pretty much before, but I don't know if I ever told anybody how bad it was.
I don't think I knew that. I thought you did ACL. Yeah.
No.
it was that bad. You tore everything.
Yeah.
Jeez. So I guess thankful you did the deal beforehand. Otherwise, whatever. And then you tell me all this stuff, and then I look, and you still won Washougal that year. You know what I mean? Like, you're being hard on yourself, and you're saying, you still won. So that I think it goes to show you how good you were.
Well, and like I said, in that time I was still more of an outdoor guy at that time, I think, and I did expect to win, and I was fighting through my, issues. I mean, yeah, was the bike bad? Yeah, I don't know, maybe. Wow. But I think the worst thing was, that not trusting it.
Mm-hmm. I think the bike was bad because in 97, Jeremy goes there and he won every race but one in 96. And he goes there and he wins 2 races, right? I mean, he had a couple of mechanicals, but like, I look at that as like the ultimate where the bike was bad. And
I kind of felt the same way because I was winning before as well.
Right. You famously stayed home for a weekend in 97. Like that was, and I was around then as a mechanic. That was huge news. You were asking for upside down forks, right? Correct me if I'm wrong at any point here. You were asking for upside down forks for a while. The bikes had conventionals and flexing and all that, and you couldn't get them. Jeremy shows up, boom, upside down forks. You're pissed, and then at some point you're just like, I'm not going to the race. That must have been like such a decision for you and your dad and everybody. Like, wow.
Yeah, and it was more than just Jeremy because I was trying to get the point across that because I don't think Roger really believed at the time in 96 that our bikes were subpar, right?
Okay, yeah.
I mean, he was putting a good effort in, and I mean he I just don't think he believed it. So Greg Albertine was my teammate at the time, and he's like just one of those positive dudes, and he's like, yeah, everything's great, Roger. And I'm like, oh man, quit saying that.
Right.
Anyway, so it was kind of like a leading up to it where everybody was like, I would just look like the asshole because, and I've been the baby, and I just wanted to do better. And I didn't feel like anybody was helping. And, and of course my parents magnified that. Like, everybody's against you and whatever. And
Roger wants Albie to win or whatever.
Whatever it was. So I just got sucked in.
Did you get fined for that, or did you lose money, or like how pissed was Hide and everybody? Like, how did that go?
Don't remember, but I remember one thing that probably changed me thereafter was I read something somewhere where somebody's like, how disrespectful for a guy to have the luxury to get paid to ride a motorcycle for a weekend or for his living and not show up. And I was like, oh, damn.
Damn. Well, but, I mean, the bike wasn't great, and I know they were trying, right? They had the fender brace. They had a brace between the forks. It's just, I don't know. I let all the drama get involved. And anyway, it's just immaturity. Yeah. Yeah, it's so funny to look back on it now, right? And be like, what was I thinking or what was I doing?
Yeah.
But in a way, you part ways with Suzuki. Did you have any other offers?
Not really.
Yeah. People were kind of like, yeah.
I wanted to go back to Cowie. And Ziggy had, hit me up kind of in a manner like, I know you're not done. I know there's more in you and, that kind of thing. And so he was trying to put something together, and I was trying to do it, through Kawasaki. And they just wouldn't. And no support, no nothing. And so Ziggy had a relationship with Honda he was a mechanic there. And he was working with through, what was the name of that? He was kind of doing a privateer gig with, Robbie Bernard and who else was that?
Oh, Primal?
Primal, yeah.
Right, yeah.
So he kind of had a bit where he got me some support and his business credit card, and we went for it.
Yeah. And you tell your dad, hey, Dad, we're.
Yeah, I said, look, I was, of course, on the other side of. I mean, I was maturing a little bit. I was realizing the stuff that I did was, why I'm in the position I'm in, and his I made decisions based on that, and I needed not to anymore or them, and so I kind of started over.
Yeah, I get my fellow Canadian Paul Delorier in there. You guys are perfect for each other because neither one talks. So you guys really worked well together. I could see that. There's an alternate world where, Turner says, "Hey, you can stay at Cowie, but we got to get you a new mechanic," and you say yes, and you continue to thrive at Cowie, right?
Yeah.
I mean, and you make you win more races and all that stuff. Obviously it's not something that you stay up at night thinking about, but yes, there's an alternate world where Cowie never lets you go. I mean, you're probably indoors and out, you're the second best rider in the world, right? There's Jeremy McGrath and then there's you.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. So funny to look back at that sliding doors a little bit. So,
I often, as an adult go, well, I had a long career with Ziggy as a racer and post. There's that path, and then there's the path I stay in Cowie and my results are better.
Yep.
And, you don't know which you would rather have.
Yeah. I'm guessing your salary, though, wasn't much these first few years, right? I mean, you got clothing money from O'Neill and...
whatever I could scrounge up.
Right. Like a big hit for a guy like you. For sure.
Yeah.
Did you like that early Honda? That 98, 99 was only the second year of aluminum frame. I recall a lot of guys bitching about it. Yogi made it work here and there, but I think somebody told me the frame is really too stiff, but Larocco is just such a beast that he doesn't notice it. So that's what I was told by a Honda guy.
Well, then that happened. And the same thing, like I told you when I went to the 96 Suzuki.
Mm-hmm.
Like I just, it is what it is. You take it on. I just did my work. And then, as time went on in my career, when, I rode that Honda, I mean, my hands would get blown off the handlebars and like all these things were happening. I'm like, what the heck?
Yeah.
And finally I started tuning in on the fact that thing was a monster to ride. It was very unforgiving. And, all the stuff that, that they're saying was right. And it just took me a minute to, besides, I mean, I was like optimistic to have a ride. So anyway, just different. And yes. And then I think I worked on that Honda the whole time I was there after that.
Yeah.
And which I think helped me in my position with Geico because I had a super good feel by that time and, enough wisdom to articulate to the techs.
Yeah. Yep.
And that kind of made a big difference.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, again, like you said, you get hooked up with the Ziggy guy and then you end up, managing the team, riding for him forever. Right. And doing big things. And certainly the bike comes around and all of that. And there's your future. Right. So, it's interesting for sure to hear that. I think your career is fascinating in a sense. And I've told my buddy Ferry this too. He doesn't care though, but maybe you don't. But I think your career is fascinating, Mike, and his is for the same reason. When you came in, it's Rick Johnson and Jeff Ford, like at the top of the sport, and you go through them to Bradshaw and Stanton, to Stewart and Reed, Carmichael. Like it's phenomenal. You spend a 2-stroke era and a 4-stroke era. Then you start seeing this guy scrubbing and soaking up jumps. And, like, you're having to adapt to all this. You're having to adapt to different machinery. And, I mean, it's just fascinating when you think about from where you came in to when you exited, the revolution of the sport. Like, when Marty Smith came in to when Marty Smith leaves, nothing much changes, 2-strokes and single shocks and whatever. And I guarantee you never thought of it this, Mike, because you just don't think about this stuff. But it's just such a jump in evolution for you from when you started to when you leave. Phenomenal.
I mean, I have had that perspective. I'm not so much about how much the sport changed, but the speeds, the speeds for sure have changed over time. And I mean, I do remember the evolution of suspension as well. I remember I was at Glen Helen testing one day with Cowie, and we had just gotten these new KYB forks, and I overjumped. I mean, back then it was singles, right?
Yep.
You send it.
Yep.
And then there was a bunch of acceleration bumps right where I was coming down. So I do this big brace because I'm going to stick my front wheel right in a square edge. And it was like, nothing. I was like, what?
Right.
I was ready for the bars to twist and, And so there's a ton of evolution, you know, and you can see our sport change and what, you know, riders have done, you know, from that period forward, like, which is kind of crazy because we can go back and ride those old twin shock bikes and do some jumps that you would have never done on them. But, you know, you have the skill set because you were, you can.
Yeah, it's got to be crazy. Did you like, as you got older and you're watching James, are you just like, oh my God, fuck my life? Like, because you got, I mean, look, you're not as good as him, let's say. You're older now, but you still want to take some things and try to do what he does, right?
Well, that's what set me off in my career. So when did he come in?
He came 2005. Well, 125s he came in 02, yeah.
And so 05 he moved up.
Yep.
Yeah, so I remember that, and you can tell, like 04, I was kind of a podium guy. And then 05, like what happened there was, I was like, man, I know I can do that, but I do not want to. He was doing stuff out of the corner that, you know, I'm heavier and I don't have that, I don't know, shimmy.
Yep.
That, you know, and I just kind of, that put me in defense. And once I started in defense, I was already at the point where, you know, when I did Supercross only, which I think 2005 would have been the first year.
Yeah, I think so. Yep.
It was already more of a business at that point, you know, because I wasn't really willing to take the risk that those guys were taking. Mm-hmm. And I'd never really lined up at the gate, not thinking I can win until then, you know?
Yeah.
And so it just turned into a business at that point. And, although I was still getting decent results, it just wasn't the same.
Did you adapt well to 4-strokes? I mean, it was kind of... Yeah, no, okay, yeah.
No, I mean, I did. It's not that I didn't adapt to them. It's just like I said, when I say defense, it was like when you're on a 2-stroke, you know, you kind of knew the thing in and out. You did, you know, my own jetting, and like I kind of, I knew it. And with a 4-stroke, I mean, it was simple as I could walk the track on the 2-stroke days and go, man, you know, I you know, if we could do that, but it'd be everything we had. Yeah. And with the 4-stroke, it was like, man, you could do that, but no way, no way. And it just kind of went like, everything changed. It was like the bike was more capable than I was willing to be, but also I was 36.
Yep. Yeah,
and so my mind was already well aware from my experience that there's danger involved.
It's funny you say that. Red Dog told me the same thing. On a 2-stroke, he knew, hey, look, this is second out of the turn, everything I got, and I'm going to clear, and I'm going to go right there. And if I just, you know, everything I got out of the turn. And he's like, 4-strokes, you're like, oh, boy, like, I don't know, like maybe 3/4 or whatever, like, you know. So, yeah, interesting.
It was... Yeah, there was also the bog factor on the 2-stroke. You were like, I mean, it's probably going to bog, so I'm going to yank hard, but it just all changed.
Yeah. Did you ever think about doing outdoors only, or no? Just too much work? Because you were a better outdoor guy, let's face it. But you know, I think the fans loved you outdoors, right? You were the hammerhead guy coming through the pack, grabbing wins late in the moto. Did you ever think about that?
Well, and that was the same thing. I mean, just a season or two before, you know, Stewart came in, Ricky was doing that outdoors. And I remember he was the first guy that was fit enough that fast. You know, he was one that kind of came through that could go the distance. Everybody else was, you know, fast at one point, but, you know, I give him 10 minutes and that would be all right, you know. But I kind of remember jumping in behind him at, I think it was actually Redbud, and it was a bunch of ruts, and I just couldn't focus going that fast. You know, like,
wow.
It was, and it wasn't that I have a seeing problem. I don't know. It's just, I couldn't feel like I had it together, and I just felt like I was on the edge. And at that time, I wasn't riding on the edge, so just kind of didn't really develop any desires to go out there and try to go that fast.
Yeah. Who frustrated you more? Was it Ricky or Jeremy? Like, I mean, Jeremy, you're at your peak, right? But Ricky, you're still pretty damn good and a potential race winner when he comes in the class. But Jeremy, you know, obviously was better than you indoors. Who got you madder? Who got you like more pissed off?
Jeremy motivated me because I know there was times I could beat him.
Yeah.
You know, like I could see, I know what he did. I know he was a smart racer. He got out there, put in good, 10 laps, and then just did what he had to do. And I knew that. So, I was like, I was more frustrated with myself with him because I do think that, when we would go head to head that I had a good chance. And when Ricky came in, it wasn't just Ricky. I mean, I was doing all those bike changes at the time. I mean, I had my own struggles.
Yeah.
And so I didn't really I looked to Ricky as changing the speed of outdoors.
Yep.
But I wasn't where I was when I was racing Jeremy.
Yeah. I imagine at times, Jeremy, California kid doing knack-knacks. Everybody's loving him. You're a quiet Indiana guy. Finishing second a ton, and everybody loves Jeremy. You're just like, fuck this guy. Like,
well, I mean,
frustration level, right? Like, yeah.
You might not know this, but I'm not super charismatic, and
yes, I'm aware.
That stuff just didn't bother me.
Oh, it didn't? Okay, yeah.
No. Like, I mean, I actually think it was good for the sport.
Yeah.
But I always used to say to myself, the neck, like, who's there? I'd be like, I am, sucker. And but that was internalized.
Yes, absolutely right. Had to been tough at times to, well, maybe not though. Like you said, you're like, I can beat this guy. I just gotta. Right. The problem was, like you said, he put in unbelievably 10 good laps, and if you're not starting with him, you're not getting them.
Right.
So that was probably a big.
I mean, and he had he had a lot of luxuries. Like I remember talking to Skip Norfolk, which was his longtime mechanic at the time, and he had some really great advice from to Jeremy, like with mental toughness and kind of like keeping him pepped up and and focused. And I mean, I was whatever I had to learn, I learned on my own. I just didn't have that. Somebody kind of giving you some great guidance. My dad would be like, all right, you got this job, all right, now, and you got to treat it like a job.
Yeah.
I'm like, what do you mean? He's like, well, 9 to 5, do whatever you need to do to get better. I was like, okay.
Yeah. You're like, that's it, right? Yeah.
Yeah. And I mean,
go ahead.
Not that there wasn't more advice, but I mean, the general statement is it's kind of on my own. And I felt like, after talking to Skip, afterwards, I was like, man, you did that? That's a good job.
Good work.
Yeah.
Skip lives here in Vegas now. I see him all the time.
Right
on. Were you the type of guy, like, I don't know for sure, but I imagine you were the type of guy like, hey, I'm going to be in California for testing and for Supercross, but then, like, as soon as the weather breaks, I am gone, and I'm going to go ride Supercross and motocross out at my house?
For sure.
Yeah.
I had my land and my track and my tractors and all that stuff. And I did eventually, I was kind of, it was around that whole era change with when I went with Ziggy. I was kind of just maturing and knowing that, it really, to take care of all that land and track and tractors and stuff, that's a distraction, and so I think in 1998 I ended up buying a place in California.
Yeah.
And, just kind of just
doing
moving on from that. Yeah.
What about these infamous training camps you would run with the Geico guys? Oh, there's some good stories from that. Yeah. Will Hahn and burpees and blowing his hands off the bar. Barsha taking everybody out, including his teammates. Yeah.
Yeah. It was fun. And when I came, I'm old school, and those kids, if you reflect on my first couple years at Geico, those guys would be out front leading. We're looking really good. And then 20 minutes in, here comes PC, going by all my guys, right?
Yeah.
So super frustrating. And, I just knew from my experience, like those guys, as soon as that first hint of pain comes up, like they're caving in. Their mental changes. Oh, all of a sudden I can't do it. like they just didn't really have, I don't think they were taught how to work through it. And so that was kind of the reason I made them suffer, because I felt like it did two things. One, it brought the team together. And two, I think, the guys that didn't hate me for it, the guys that like Will and are they on the other side of it, understand what I was trying to do.
Yeah.
But it was definitely, did I get in a lot of trouble for that?
Yeah. Somebody, I don't know what. I heard that you blew out their arms before a race and no one could hold onto their bikes or something. Obviously it was exaggeration, but it was.
Yeah. So I did. We had a Moto at my property,
mm-hmm.
and so I kind of had it was every time you had to do 100 push-ups. But every time you took a break, you had to do 5 burpees or something.
Okay, yeah.
And so first one done, is gets to head out to the Moto first. So that was Will, and I had a big jump, and he landed on the other side. I was like, oh crap.
Blew his hands off. Couldn't hold on. It's great. Great story. Yeah. How much was it to manage Barsha early on? Was it a full-time deal for you? Like you're just like between mom and dad and him and everything that went on?
Yeah, well, yes, because not so much Barsha. Like Barsha was, he went home, he did his work, he'd come to the race. No matter what happened the week before, during the week, whatever, he could just drop it and go out there and race, and I love that about him.
Yes.
So more with Barsha, I was like, dude, just like don't go straight for the front wheel. Like turn it just a little bit so it looks like an accident.
Yeah.
I was like, come on, man. I mean, you can be aggressive. And I liked it because everybody was afraid of him. Not unlike, I had a bit of a reputation, right? But anyway, that was the harder part of Barsha. And then, I seen a lot in him, but he was kind of, I don't know what the right word is, kind of like really committed to MTF.
Mm-hmm.
And I really didn't think I could get through to him in the way that I think he needed, with all that involvement from everybody else.
Yeah.
So I was trying to get him to spend more time in California. And then, that Lorraine wasn't happy with that, so she came after me. And, kind of just growing pains. I mean, not unlike I went through, and I get to deal with it on the other side going, oh yeah, I see.
Yeah. Well, I remember Kehoe told me one time, he told Barsha, Kehoe was Honda then, but he's like, hey man, you're going to have a hard time winning a championship when even the lappers want to kill you. You know what I mean? Like even the lappers are going to try to not let you by because you clean them out at some seeded practice, So it's just like, kind of get a hold of that. Come on, Justin, figure it out. But, he does remind me of you in a little bit, not in the takeout part of things, but that dude's a racer. Puts his helmet on, and there's no quit. And sometimes he makes questionable decisions, which you didn't make. But he does remind me he's a racer, which you have to tip your visor to him,
Yeah, and I saw that early.
Yeah. So I guess for you, you're like, look, there's a lot of things around this kid, but on the track, there's a lot of heart. There's a lot of effort,
Yeah.
So, good stuff. Thanks, Mike. I appreciate the time, man. I think I got all the questions out that I had for you. So I know you didn't, you don't love talking, but I think we did a good job here. Yeah.
Well, it's easier on the phone. I feel like people are looking at me.
True. That is true. No, man, I just wanted to catch up. You had a tremendous career on and off the bike, and I think my listeners, I got a few people the last, say, year that are like, what's up with Mike Larocco? And I'm like, yeah, I don't know. Let's see what's up with Mike Larocco. So that's why I reached out to you, and I really appreciate you taking the time for us and all of that, man. Yeah.
Yeah, it's good talking.
Thanks very much. Fly Racing RacerX podcast with Mike Larocco. Be well, Mike, and if I can help you out at all, let me know, man.
All right, take care.
Thanks. Bye.